Elizabeth, so honored to have you here for this episode. We have not had a success story episode in quite a while. So everybody's story is so different. And I feel like whenever we have these success story episodes, they're the most listened to episodes, and everybody can just pull out one little trinket or one little suggestion or recommendation or something from your story. I mean, people just love to hear success stories, and not only success stories, but just your stories, like what you went through on your health journey, how you got here, how you found me, and what you've implemented. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to it. I appreciate you having me.
Yes. And as the listeners will hear, like, it's been pretty quick for you. I just started working with you real recently and got in touch with you. And I am just so happy that you're, what's the word I'm looking for? Not available, but that you are accepting to share your story.
Absolutely.
I know there's
Absolutely.
people out there, and I feel like when we do these episodes too, then I'll get other people like, okay, I'll do a story. I'll do my episode. I'll do my episode.
Right.
It can be
Right.
kind of scary and intimidating, but really it's so helpful for everyone else. So go ahead and start with, your backstory, just a little bit about you and how you got to, find me. And then we'll go into more of like your actual process of what you did to implement your changes.
Right. Sure. Well, I'll say I'm 52. And growing up, my childhood, my mom always cooked fairly healthy for us. We always had pretty much a meat and 3 vegetables and a dessert sometimes. But I grew up with good eating habits thanks to her. So that kind of carried out through my life. Of course, I had moments of, I love ice cream and I love cake and cookies, and but I knew to keep it at moderation. So basically just had good habits. And when I met my husband 17 years ago, he ran track in high school, and he was very healthy as far as exercise. His diet could use a little tweaking, which we did. But we ate dinner pretty much at the same time. I never had fried food. We always ate generally very healthy, and we always ran together. We went to the gym together. So we had what I would call a healthy lifestyle for sure. Around 2016 or 17, the older we got, we got kind of tired of going to the gym. We had 2 dogs, so we always did get out and walk them, and we loved to hike. That was our thing. We would go camping. We would go, he introduced me to kayaking, so we would go paddling and mostly hiking though, and camping, and we would take the dogs with us. So we always got exercise outdoors. But it started to slack off for some reason. We would walk, but we just got tired of going to the gym basically. So come 2020, when COVID hit, like everybody, I think we stayed in more, watched our shows on Netflix. We did always take the dogs, so we did get out some, but the real exercise almost stopped other than that. And we bought Oreos every night, to have while we watched our shows, which we never did. I never bought junk food. I mean, we didn't have junk cereal. We didn't have anything. It was always very healthy what I bought. In fact, he used to make fun of me because everything I bought had to be low sugar and just really healthy. So this was very abnormal for me to buy junk, but we just kind of got in this lull where we really didn't. He came home, he had worked long hours, and I wasn't feeling good. I have lupus and Sjogren's syndrome and Raynaud's. So that kind of played into everything. And I managed it very well with my diet and of course the exercise. I had to take the medicine to control the flares with the lupus, but everything else I did really well. It never affected my organs. I had a lot of trouble with my eyes. The Sjogren's, with it drying everything out, that was really hard. And that definitely got worse. I just got really lethargic. I started swelling a lot more, and I would sleep. I could sleep 24 hours a day easily, just sleep nonstop. And just didn't feel good. It just was building up, and I quit my job. I stayed at home. My mom was having some health issues, so I was helping her. She was in and out of the hospital with AFib, and she had a blood clot and MS. So there was a lot of issues with her. So I stayed at home, and everything just kind of spiraled out of control. We didn't exercise at all. And in December of 2020, I lost Kurt to an abdominal aortic aneurysm. He was gone in seconds, and, totally unexpected. Sorry. Just tore my whole world apart. And
your husband.
Yes.
Your late husband.
Yes, my husband. So when he died, of course, I was alone. My daughter had already moved up to Tennessee. We had moved my mom, and thinking that, we were going to move up here as well. So I was by myself about an hour and a half away, and things got even worse with my health. I just kind of gave up. I slept all the time, and I was just miserable. So then I got COVID, and it was really, really bad for 3 weeks. I was very sick. And of course, with lupus, stress makes everything so much worse. So I really didn't do anything but sleep and cry and eat junk food. And finally, in May of 21, I moved up to Tennessee in Chattanooga to be near my daughter and her husband, because she was going to have our first grandchild. So I wanted to be close anyway. So I moved up here. So I had a new house, and spending more time with my daughter, and just still could not move past everything that had happened. And my diet just steady went downhill. I don't know if you've heard of crumble cookies, but
Oh yes, we have them in our area.
oh my gosh, I became literally obsessed with those. And I would nights were the worst for me.
Sure.
Because it was so lonely. I was okay when I was at my daughter's, and then when the baby came in August, I was very busy, but I was exhausted. We all were with the newborn, but we ate a lot of fast food, and we, people brought food, and we just ate whatever. So I was steady gaining weight. And then the crumble cookies, I discovered those, and I would literally call, I forgot the name of the food delivery place, but anyway.
DoorDash or.
Yes, it was DoorDash.
Eats, yeah.
Yes. And I would call them at night. And of course, you can't get less than a 4-pack delivered. Right. So and they're huge.
Yes, they are.
So I would order 4 of those, and I would literally sit and eat those. I mean, of course, they're huge, so I could not eat that much at one time, but I would just sit there and pick at them until they were gone. And it didn't take me that long, but it was just so much sugar.
Yeah.
And that made me feel even worse. And then I got even more depressed and just really gave up. My swelling, my fingers, my feet were huge. There were days where I was supposed to take care of my grandson. I tried to keep him 4 days a week, but everything got so much worse with my health. We actually had to get a nanny to help, and I only keep him 2 days a week now, but my hands and feet were so swollen. My hair was falling out. And I know you've talked about having mouth sores. I got those. Horrible. Still ate, didn't stop me from eating. I didn't care. But I would just, every night, I would have to have a massive piece of cake from Publix or cookie. I would have to have something. That was my comfort. And it was so out of control. And I ended up gaining 20 pounds, which I know is not a huge amount, but for me, I've always pretty much been the same size. But gaining 20 pounds, none of my clothes fit. I mean, I had so many jeans, so many pairs of shorts, nothing fit. I had to buy all new clothes. And I was so bloated, like you had talked about, just felt miserable and just felt so bad about myself for letting this happen, because none of this is me. But, when you lose your husband or your best friend, and we had plans, he was about to retire. We had bought a camper. We had so many plans, and all that was just gone in an instant, and it just crushed me. So I kind of gave up on everything. And then in July, a good friend of mine, we were at dinner, and I had noticed she was losing weight because I saw her fairly often. I was like, wow, you look really good. What are you doing? Well, she told me about you, and I was so grateful. Something that I felt was actually doable. I'd heard of intermittent fasting. I'd kind of tried it in the past. Didn't really know which hours not to eat, or what was best for me to get the best results. So that night I ordered your book and started reading it right away, and I really kind of rushed into it, and we'll get into that more when you talk about the steps, but it changed my life, and I lost all the weight. Just everything got better. The swelling, my skin looked better, my hair was not falling out, just really made a huge difference. I had tried, Kurt and I would gain a few pounds every now and then, and it started building up a little bit, but even before COVID. And I would run. I would, like you, eat the healthy snacks all day long, 3 healthy meals, 2 healthy snacks, just way overdoing it, thinking I was doing the right thing. And then wondering why I couldn't even lose 2 pounds, just no matter what I did. I was running 5 miles, but I was eating so much and eating at the wrong time. Sometimes we would have date night every Saturday night. We would eat dinner at sometimes 8:30. And then go to bed, not too long after that, but certainly not enough time for the food to digest and, to be doing it correctly. So just struggled with losing 2 pounds. And then this weight, because I was following everything you said and learning so many new things that made so much sense that I never thought about, it just really came off. And I'm very happy that has helped so many things. I just, instead of feeling hopeless, I feel like, wow, I'm still here. I have to live. I have a grandson now that is the world to me, and I need to be there for him. And it just kind of really sparked a positive attitude, which I did not have since the moment I lost Kurt. So it's been great, and I'm so appreciative. And I've listened to other people, I'm listening to the podcast while I was in the midst of it, and listening to the people talking about how they done it, and the struggles, because, I have had some struggles, but generally this has been the easiest thing to follow that I've done. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. It's very brave of you. And just the little tidbits that you said, I think people can find very relatable. And you went through an enormous amount of stress in a short period of time. We all struggled during those 2020 to 2022 years of COVID, and being, kind of locked up in our homes, and just starting to implement habits and changes that we normally would do. Like you said, it's like, I don't buy Oreos and sit on my couch at night.
No, never.
This is not me. And so it's very brave of you to share that. And we've all been through COVID, and that was a very hard time. But then to lose your closest human is just an insurmountable amount of stress. And you've come out on the other side. And I'm sure that there's, you're still getting through, there's still going to be times that you're struggling, as this is still pretty new, but at least you've learned some tools. You have tools to deal with it. And just going back to you growing up and how you ate mostly meat and vegetables, and you had your dessert maybe right at the tail end of your meal, and you didn't snack in between, it's like, that's how we used to live.
Right.
Didn't have the the issues and the obesity that we see now. We didn't have the weight issues.
Mhm.
But yes, and then you just slowly, a lot of people chalk it up to age, is like, oh, I'm just getting older, I have to gain weight. But
Exactly.
it is like your eating habits have changed, but your insulin sensitivity has changed over time too. And that's really the real issue. So if you can fix that and get that back to where, you feel well and you can reverse that insulin resistance, then, you're going to feel a whole lot better.
It does make a huge difference for sure. It really does. I never knew anything about that at all.
And most people don't. They don't know how their body works. And we've been told for decades to eat often and eat as soon as you get up. And for some people,
Right.
it works well to eat when they get up, but then we don't want to eat all day until the time we go to bed. Like, we need to cut it off. We need to
Exactly.
keep our episodes eating episodes at balanced meals, so we're not like picking all day.
Yeah.
That, once you kind of started and got into those habits, it's just like this black hole that you go down, and it's like the sugar is exacerbating the blood glucose and the insulin, and your energy's unstable. And then
It was non-existent. It wasn't unstable. It was
yeah,
non-existent.
there's no energy, and then you crash, and then you
Yeah.
crave, and then the sugar comes again, and it's just this endless cycle. And it's like, when you're in it, it's really tough to climb out. So I give you a
It
lot of,
really is.
hasn't been a long time it's only, so I want to make sure the listeners know, like, you just found me in July of 2022. This was
Yeah. Just a few months ago.
it's only been a few months for you that you've really turned things around.
Yeah.
And I think your story is super important as well, because we're all going to have huge, unfortunately, we're all going to lose somebody very
Right.
close to us, whether it's expected or unexpected. We're all going to go through these challenges at some point in our lives, and we need to know how to deal with it. And, there's no right or wrong, but just knowing, nutrition wise, what can make you feel better and help you balance your energy is really important.
Absolutely. And that makes a huge difference in how you feel and your attitude. When you get to that stage, right when I lost him, I literally didn't care about anything at all. I was like, I can't handle it. I cannot handle this. And certainly eating and certainly exercise was not important. I was just surviving from hour to hour.
Yep.
So,
and that's okay. Like, you're going to go through that. You're going to be like, I don't care about my nutrition.
right.
At least to have the knowledge in the back of your head, like, when you are ready to kind of go back and feel like a human again.
Yeah.
At least you have the knowledge. So tell us about, so we'll start kind of in that preparation phase. So you got the book, like, what did you do? Like, people are probably like, how did you even prepare to get out? And I do want to say a little bit about those crumble cookies too. It's like,
I'm not saying anything bad about crumble.
Oh,
you have to
no.
eat them in moderation. I was
know.
eating 4 at a time, and you can't do that. But
No.
oh my word, I'm still obsessed, and I follow them, and I see the new flavors every Sunday, and I got to quit doing that.
I know. And we just had like crumble come to our community probably in the last year or so. And I've never had any, because there's no gluten-free option. So it's kind of like, I'm kind of glad they don't have a gluten-free option.
Right.
Don't even tempt me.
Yeah.
I know my middle son and his girlfriend, like, that's their thing, like, go to crumble cookies. And I'm like, those are as big as your head. But
they are.
It's like they'll have like a half of one and they can be done. But I'm like, don't even bring those in the house. So
no, you really can't. And that's the thing is, and that really, it's funny you say that, because that's really how I had to start. Is I literally went through everything. There's so much I want to say. I want to make sure I remember this, but that's literally what I did first, is in your preparing phase. And I always thought, oh, I've got these healthy crackers, and healthy pitas I can eat with hummus. And you say no processed food, no, nothing from the inside, of the grocery store. Just shop the perimeter where everything's healthy, the produce, and skip all the processed food. So I got rid of all of that. And that was my thing. If it was not in the house, obviously I couldn't eat it. So I just had to force myself to stop. There was a place called Piece of Cake also near here. When I'd get tired of crumble, I would go by there and I would get a massive, if you could see the size of this cake, it was huge. And sometimes I would eat the whole thing. So that was went along with getting rid of everything in the house, was stopping. I knew I had to stop the sugar because I would instantly feel so bad. And when you have lupus, you cannot eat sugar. I mean, the inflammation is so much worse. So I knew the whole time I was doing this, this is, this is so bad, but I didn't care. So I had to finally get to the point where I did care. And then seeing my friend who also follows you and read your book, seeing her results, I was like, wow, I've got to get it together. At some point, I've got to do this. And so I did. I got rid of everything. I started buying organic, which I never did. I read your list of what's really not necessary, like avocado. It's got a hard outside. You don't need to worry about it. But everything else that I needed to buy organic, I did. Only bought clean, healthy food. Got rid of everything else. And that was pretty much how I started, looking at different meals I could make, which, and I will say this too, my daughter was vegan at one time for about 3 years. Well, I thought, oh, plant-based diet is definitely the best. So I did that. When Kurt and I would go out, I would always get a vegetable plate. I never ate meat unless it was salmon or shrimp. I don't eat red meat, which I still don't. I just don't care for it. So I eat a lot of chicken and turkey and a lot of fish, salmon. But just really tried to look at each meal and think about it instead of, just throwing together something and eating whatever. So that's basically how I started, just really being mindful, getting rid of everything and stopping the sugar.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important to get it out of your home, or, have a controlled amount, or some people can have it
Right.
in their home and do a controlled amount, but some people it's like, no, if
Mm-mm.
for a while, get it out. And, it's like people go back and forth with this. Well, oh, then you're going to sabotage yourself, or, you're setting yourself up for a binge. It's like, well, if it's there, it's very accessible, and it's
Yes.
easy to fail. So, yeah, that preparation phase is so important, because if you had just jumped in and done like, I'm going to do a 24-hour fast tomorrow, I mean, you would have
Yeah.
struggled and you'd be like, this sucks. I'm never doing this again.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't go 3 hours without eating, much less
yeah,
24,
exactly. And when you're eating that much sugar, your insulin's so high that
Ugh,
like, you got to bring that down and clean things up first if you
for
want to have
sure.
any success with fasting. And there's people who can white knuckle it, but it's not
It,
fun.
it was really, yeah, it just, I mean, honestly, sugar, and I've said this for years, is like, which I've never taken cocaine or crap it. That's
Yeah.
what it's like. It's seriously, once I eat one thing, one cookie, one anything, that starts a spiral.
Yeah.
And remind me to tell you when we get to this point. I have gone through that the last 2 weeks, and I will go through that when it's appropriate to
Yeah.
go through
Well,
that.
and I
But
know like studies show in mice anyway, that sugar lights up our pleasure centers in our brain 10 times more than cocaine does. So it
I
is,
believe it. I believe
people
it.
want to say like, oh, sugar's not addictive, but it is
Oh,
one of
it
the
is.
addictive things that we can put into our bodies. And yeah,
Absolutely.
so maybe, and I actually have a podcast coming out about sugar addiction, and actually I think it aired last week. But some people can have controlled amounts, and some just like, no, you got to get rid of it at least for a while, and
Right.
your
I
body.
think that's the key is
Mhm.
for a while. I mean, I went for almost 3 months. I had already kind of started, getting rid of the sugar before I heard about you. Still eating way too much, still eating not healthy, but I had started to do that. So it was a little easier, in preparation for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something you can't, once you stop altogether, after I've noticed about 4 or 5 days, the serious craving where you're just dying, I'm not going to get through the day if I don't have something sweet, that does go away.
Mhm.
And I've heard, I don't think it's just me. I've heard several people
Yeah.
say that it, the cravings kind of die down after you stop.
For sure. And for you, like you say, you have a lot of inflammatory conditions that were just
Yeah.
really exacerbated. So that
Yes.
gave you kind of one more push and,
Right.
I got to get this out of my body.
Absolutely.
So tell us about how you went on to then extend your periods of time without eating, or, how you implemented some intermittent fasting and where you are at now.
Well, I will say that the most important meal for me has always been breakfast. Kurt and I got up really early. He had to leave for work at 5:30. So we would get up at 4:30 and I would make our breakfast and make his lunch and we would eat together. Even though it was really early, we wanted that time together. So breakfast was just a big deal, and my mom always said breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And it really did fuel me, so I knew that like I look forward to it. I have to eat. I don't eat right when I get up. I'll have my coffee first and then I'll eat probably 30 minutes later. Um, but I knew that was going to be a major struggle. So I thought, well, let me just try, which I had skipped lunch before. Sometimes I would do a smoothie, which now I look back and go read the sugar content. And I'm like, wow, even though it was healthy fruits, sometimes they would add yogurt or fruit juice or whatever. And just, that was not good either. And probably why I never lost the weight. But I would still have breakfast, and I always wanted bacon. I always wanted to have, but I always thought, no, that's terrible. It's fried. It's not good. And then when you said I could have bacon, I'm like, yes. I went out and bought turkey bacon. I have it almost every morning. So I still like the intermittent fasting where I can get up and have my coffee, and then I will have 2 strips of turkey bacon. I'll have 2 eggs, either cottage cheese or the full fat yogurt, with blueberries and walnuts and chia seeds, and um, sometimes a piece of wheat toast with avocado or whatever. It's a huge breakfast. I actually would take pictures of it in the beginning and show my daughter, look what I'm eating for breakfast. She's like, that's a lot of food. But it was wonderful because truly, I never ate protein in the morning other than the eggs. And even then, we didn't do a whole lot. We would do whole grain waffles, and he loved bagels. So none of that was what I should have been eating. So I switched it up, and now it's every morning I have eggs. And just a really big breakfast. So that's my favorite, is where I can skip lunch. That was pretty easy in the beginning because, like I said, I'd done it before. And then I just got to the point where if I was like starving in the very beginning, I would have like a handful of almonds or walnuts, dried cranberries, or something that was, had protein and would kind of carry me over to where I realized, okay, you can skip dinner and you'll survive, So that was the easiest for me. But I think about other people who have families like you do. And like when I go to my daughter's, when I keep my grandson, usually I'll stay, Wednesdays and Fridays, I'll stay for dinner. So it's hard. It's easy for me when I'm alone to skip dinner. There's no one else I have to cook for. And, I can just skip it and it's not a problem. But I know if you have a family, that's a lot harder. So I know when I keep my grandson on Wednesdays and Fridays, I won't eat breakfast. I'll eat like lunch with him, and dinner we'll try to eat early. And then that's, my 2 days that I'll eat dinner. And then for the most part, I usually will do a breakfast and a fairly early lunch, and then close my eating window for the rest of the day till morning. And I know you and I had talked about this, and I'll go ahead and say, I think I was handling it so well. I was so excited when I saw the first few pounds, which I remember I had been doing it probably 2 weeks, and I was terrified to weigh because I could tell my jeans were feeling better, my shorts were feeling better. And I was at my mom's assisted living place, and they have this huge, very accurate scale where you can stand on it. It's supposed to be really accurate. So I walked by it with my mom, and I'm like, I wonder if I've lost any weight. And I asked if I could get on it, and sure enough, I had lost 10 pounds
Wow.
in 2 weeks.
That's
And
crazy.
I started crying. I'm like, I knew, and my mom was crying because she knew, what I've been going through, and how much I wanted to lose this weight. And I was just feeling better. So it may have been it may have been 3 weeks. I can't remember exactly, but to me, a relatively short amount of time to lose that much weight. So that really got me going, when I saw that. So I think if you can get through, I'll just say even the first month, if you see anyone, even 5 pounds, I had just waited. I didn't weigh, I didn't have a scale. I didn't want to weigh because I thought, oh, I've tried before. I didn't lose any weight when I was running. And I had no idea, it would come off like this, but it really did. And then I was so excited. But I will say this too, and I'm sure other people are going to hear this. My mom is very old school. Most people are going to tell you, oh, you're skipping dinner, you're skipping lunch. That's not healthy. I can't tell you how many times. And I finally had to have like a sit down talk with my mom and read some of the book and explain to her, I'm not starving, because she would always, oh, you're not eating enough. You're not eating enough. But she didn't see me enough to know how many meals, this was before Kurt died, that I was eating. So for her to hear that I was doing a 24-hour fast, oh, that's not good. You have to eat. No wonder you have no energy and all this. I said, no, Mom, I do have energy now that I'm doing the fasting because I'm not eating sugar. So it was not just her. It was a lot of people, that it scared them, the thought of doing a 24-hour fast, much less 36, 48, that's unheard of. So that was one thing I ran into is a little bit of negative comments from people and having to kind of explain that to them. But
Yeah, there's a lot of explaining that needs to go on usually.
yes,
And even for me, I've told this story so many times, like to wrap my brain around basically the opposite of what I was teaching took a long time. But
I bet.
there's so many things I love. Like I love that you're eating bacon. I was like you, I didn't eat bacon for probably 20 years. Like
Yeah, same. We never had it.
I'm like, oh, it's going to raise my cholesterol. It's going to cause
Exactly.
diabetes. It's like, I love bacon. Like I could eat that on my salad every day or
Mhm.
shift. I'm using like a low, like a keto bread or something, but I'm like, I love bacon and I love hamburgers. I know you're not big on red meat, but
I do turkey or bison.
it's like, I deprived myself of that for so
Yep, me
long.
too.
And it's so like so many things that you said. It's funny how, I feel like you're constantly snacking throughout the day, but chronically under eating and chronically undernourishing your body. Like nobody blinks an eye at that. Like say you're lower calorie, but you're just snacking. Nobody blinks an eye. Like they're like, oh, she's eating fine. But it's like the moment you go like, I'm only going to eat 1 or 2 meals, even though I'm going to eat balanced, healthy food and I'm going to
Right.
calorically fulfill what I need. People are like, oh, what?
I know. They
Really
literally,
once or twice a day.
yeah,
But it's fine to like snack all day. So
I know.
it's just so backward. But yeah, that's wonderful. And I love too that you're okay with like, and I've talked about this more recently on the podcast, and I know my book was published over 2 years ago, so I don't have as much information in this about this. But I love that you are like, I love breakfast. I'm going to eat when I get up in the morning and I'm going to
Yeah.
start eating early, early in the afternoon. And I've kind of started to do that more and more because I'm like you, like I get up early, I exercise early.
Yeah.
So I've been starting to eat my meals earlier and if there's stuff going on at nighttime, I just don't eat dinner that day. It
Yeah.
works really well. So I love that, people can hear like if they really love those breakfast foods and eating early in the morning, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just then we don't want to eat until we're going to bed.
Right. Yeah. And It really is a learning process. It really is what works for you.
Yeah.
And I have to say, there are certain things I tried and I absolutely could not do. And I thought, well, like black coffee.
Yeah.
Kurt and I, my daughter and her husband, we're coffee connoisseurs. So we would seek out coffee shops, buy expensive, delicious coffee. But I always had to have even just a tiny bit of flavored creamer in it. My hazelnut, my vanilla cream, whatever, I had to have that. So I tried, I said, okay, I'm going to follow this to the letter. I'm going to have black coffee. And I look forward to my coffee like nothing else. When I get up, I go straight to the coffee pot. But I could not do the black coffee. I said, this is something, at least right now, I so look forward to. I mean, I've got a little country house in the woods, and my favorite thing is to sit on my porch and watch deer and birds and have my coffee. And I'm like, if I'm drinking something that tastes horrible to me, I'm not going to enjoy it. I said, I'm going to make this work with a tiny bit. And I used to put a lot. So I cut down to just 1 teaspoon. I mean, that even just the slightest bit of flavor. So I have been still doing that, never stopped. And that did not affect the weight loss, and my insulin levels didn't skyrocket. So I tried, to do everything else right, but I do still put my creamer in. But like I said, I think it really is a learning process. You have to figure out what works for you. And like if you're going to have lunch with a friend in the middle of the day, I have learned to skip breakfast. I can do it now with just my coffee. So I guess it is based on what my day looks like, is how my fasts go, what meal to skip.
Yeah. Yeah, you
So
said it perfectly. And then you get to that point. I think it's really hard to do that at first when
it
you're
is very hard in the beginning.
it's like you need more of those concrete rules, like, okay, I'm really got to target my protein, and I really, I'm going to try to stay in a 6-hour window or a 4-hour window,
Right.
whatever it is. But then as you get healthier and your body adapts, like you're like, okay, my day looks like this. And that's exactly
Hmm.
what I do too. It's like, okay, I have things going on at night. I don't want to eat dinner like I don't need to eat dinner tonight, or
Right.
yeah, you just structure your day with how you're feeling and what you have going on, and your body will be perfectly fine because you have stable energy. And the other thing that I love, and this just kind of segues right into your ultra nutrition, is how you've really fixed that first meal to be higher protein, some
Exactly. And I never did that.
yeah. And then you just, it's like, even if you are younger and more insulin sensitive, you're just setting yourself up for kind of those crazy energy ups and
And
downs.
crashes.
Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like
Hmm.
now you start your day, and it's not like you can't eat any carbohydrate. It's just you start with higher protein and some fat, eat your carbs at the tail end of your meal, and you just set yourself
Right.
up for stable energy. So that it sounds like that was one of the biggest changes that you've made. Anything else
It
that you want
was.
to mention about your nutrition?
Um, I'm trying to incorporate different meats because, like I said, I was so focused on plant-based. I had books, and I, followed people on Instagram, plant-based this, and so that was to go from not eating hardly any meat to, figuring some in for each meal. Like I remember going out with my friend that was following you. I was watching in the very beginning what she ordered. Um, and she ordered this sandwich, which I got a salad, of course, with just a little bit of grilled chicken on it. And she ordered this meal that had a lot, it was like a sandwich that had a lot of meat. I can't remember what kind of, like a Reuben or something. And then she left the bread off and asked them, can you put it on just like a romaine lettuce? But I wasn't used to eating the meat yet. This was in the beginning. And I saw that big stack of meat, and I'm like, oh, I would love to eat that. It looks so good, but I don't need to eat that. I wonder why she's eating that much. And the more I learned, now I look back and like, wow, that's a really good thing that I should be eating. It was a lean, I feel stupid. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a very lean meat because she follows you, to the letter. She does a great job with that. But just the thought of eating that much meat or having a hamburger, I bet, I mean, my husband would order hamburgers all the time, and he got to where he liked the turkey burgers instead of, really fat hamburger meat. But it was just unheard of for me to eat a hamburger. And it was so nice to know now I can have this, but I need to watch my carbs, because we were eating like waffles and, like I said, bagels and a lot of carbs. So I had to kind of cut those out completely and then incorporate the meats, and the extra protein. But I did find, and I never dreamed I could eat such a huge breakfast
Right.
or, a huge lunch and still lose this weight and still feel so good. But that was huge for me, is adding meat and paying attention. And I know the red meat, like a really lean brisket or pork loin or like bison. We got into this phase where we ate a lot of bison burgers, and that's really, I've heard it's less fat than even grilled chicken. So I don't know if that's true, but it's really lean. But that was huge for me to get to eat meat without feeling guilty.
Yeah, that was me too. And, and even I was the same as you. I'm like, oh, if I do eat meat, it's chicken or turkey. Like
exactly. Mm-hmm.
And I would do some venison, like my family, they hunt a lot and we always have.
Right.
But yeah, I was afraid, and I thought, oh, I will just eat a little, like you, like I'll just have a little side of chicken and then I'm hungry. Like I'd eat the salad and I'd be hungry like 2-3 hours later.
Exactly.
Huge salad, like why? But yeah, it's just not, it's giving you some energy, but it's not hitting those fullness and satiety hormones and centers and saying we've had enough nourishment. Because if you lack that protein and fat, you're just struggling to rebuild. You're not building hormones, and all of that played into, when you were addicted to sugar too. And I mean, you had a tremendous loss, but at the same time, you were also dealing with probably not high levels of serotonin at all, because you have the building blocks there to build your hormones and just so many things. So yeah, it's amazing how far you've come in a couple of
Thank you.
And then the next step is clean, challenge, and change, which, some people have a lot to say about this and some don't. Like as far as, throwing any challenge days in, or what your biggest challenges were. Or you talked about clean fasting, and people ask me about that all the time. Like, can I put this in my coffee? Can I put this? And I always say, like, if you're making progress with what you're doing, I'm not going to sit here and say, no, you can't do this or you can't do that. It's like, but if you hit a stall,
Right.
you need to start to peel some things back and say, well, why is that? There's something standing in the way of your body getting as healthy as it can. But yeah, what any like challenges? We talked about clean fasting and then changing things up. Like you're just kind of getting started, but you've already hit are you kind of at the point where you've hit your goals as far as like body composition and health, or are you still working on that?
I would say I am definitely still working on that. This, I will be honest and say, which I did get down. I lost the 20 pounds, and 120 was my goal, which I normally, my parents were both like really, really skinny as kids. Everybody, I'm blessed. I know I'm blessed with good genes, and it was not as big of a struggle, and it doesn't sound like, oh, big deal, 20 pounds. I know there's a lot of people that really struggle, and I feel terrible, bragging about 20 pounds, because I know it's not a lot. But when you go up 4 sizes, because my stomach and my thighs were so big, it was just, that's where my weight went. I couldn't wear my clothes, and that was a problem. Regardless, that's what I would tell people, because I would get some ugly comments from coworkers, and if I was just trying to eat healthy and go to the gym, and they would have birthday cake and have a bunch of pizza and then birthday cake. Sometimes I wouldn't eat it, because I knew I would gain weight, and I do gain weight very quickly. So that was something I had to really be conscious of. But I guess the clean eating, and sorry, I kind of lost my track.
Yeah. The challenge, like any
Oh
challenge.
yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't really done any actual challenges, but I will say the last 2 weeks, I probably need to, because these last 2 weeks, my daughter and son-in-law and my grandson were going to go to this festival. I found it online, and I thought, well, we'll go together. And they had something else to do beforehand. So I thought, well, I'll drive out there and then y'all can meet me. So I get out there. It was in a beautiful area. The drive there was gorgeous, and I was in a pretty good frame of mind. So I get there. It's not what I thought. It was indoors. I was so disappointed. So I'm driving back, and in this weather, in Georgia, it's October, the leaves are turning. It's beautiful. And this is when we would camp almost every weekend. So this time of year is hard because it's getting close to the holidays and when he died, and it's just really hard. So I ended up in this cute little town at this restaurant, and I'm still getting used to eating out by myself, which I don't like it, but I'm trying to force myself. So I'm starting to get depressed. It's getting late, and I told them, don't bother coming. So I know I'm going to be alone the rest of the days. So I go in this restaurant, and I stood in front of it, and it took me forever to actually go inside. And I texted my daughter. She's like, Mom, just go in. So I go in, and I immediately start crying in this restaurant because it feels like he should be there. So I ordered this massive barbecue sandwich and coleslaw, and I'm dessert. I'm pigging out. I'm crying. I'm like, okay. So I kind of just hit a spiral. And for 2 weeks, I got after that, I left that restaurant, drove to Crumble, bought 2 cookies. This is terrible, but this is true. I'm going to be transparent. Bought 2 cookies, and I sat there and ate them. And for those 2 weeks, I really was in such a bad place. It was like, I'm so depressed. This is, I'm leaning back to that I don't care mode. So finally, Sunday morning, I woke up and I thought, no, you gave all those clothes away. Kurt would not want you. You were feeling better. My feelings towards him, I don't feel like I'll ever recover, especially from how it happened and from the loss. But I was at least feeling like there was hope, and my life had meaning again, because it's hard to create a new life when you're really happy with the one you have. So my eating kind of spiraled out of control. And today is the 3rd day. I'm back on track. It was hard the first day because my insulin levels, I was starving. And I actually ate dinner one night at home for myself. I made a very healthy, I had shrimp and spinach and all these vegetables. And I ate dinner, and I finished the half of the crumble cookie. And then my daughter said, you were supposed to come eat dinner with us. So I went over there and ate a whole nother dinner with her. And she had gotten home late. So this is 8:00. So this was just how I was spiraling out of control and with the eating again. I was so hungry because I had been eating the sugar and eating a lot of it and eating too much food and not the right food. So a lot of it is your mindset and how much you want to continue to feel good, because, my feet started to swell up on the bottom. Some of it from walking a lot, and in inappropriate shoes. But that on top of the sugar and the poor eating and eating too late, I just kind of got back into that, and it's honestly scared me. So I thought, no, you have got to get this together. So I went out and visited my husband's grave, and I talked to him, and I prayed for, the strength to get back to where I was. And now is the 3rd or 4th day that I'm back on track. I'm sleeping great. I'm back on track with my eating. No crumble in my house. no more sugar. And this intermittent fasting and the way you have it set up, I have to say it was pretty easy
Yeah.
after that first day to get back on track. If you don't have the right mindset, if you don't really want it, I think you're probably not going to do it, because it is so easy to fall off track. I mean, just in 2 weeks period, everything just, I could have easily gone right back to where I was, very easily. I gained 4 pounds. So seeing that on the scale, I was too scared to weigh, 'cause I thought I'd gained more than that, but I've already dropped 2. So I'm feeling better again. But just for people that go through a bad moment like that, try not to let it spiral out of control and go back to the beginning. Because once you see that success and weight loss, and that's another thing too, it's not just the weight loss. I know in your book and on your podcast, you were talking about the way your body looks, even if you lose a couple of pounds or 5 pounds, you really can tell. Like the first thing I noticed was my arms, and my daughter noticed, because in some of my pictures, my arms just looked huge, and there was so much extra fat. And my face, my friends were like, wow, I can really tell in your face. That's another positive thing, is that you can really tell in just the way your body looks, not from a huge weight loss, just from even a little bit. It does, you can tell, you can feel it.
Oh yeah. And when it's fluids, which is a lot of the case, when you eat a ton of carbohydrates and sugar, you just retain a lot of the fluid when your insulin starts to climb again. It's like
Right.
you lose that. And, especially if you, like for you, you lost 10 pounds pretty quickly. A lot of that's just extra fluid. And then you start to tap into that fat. But I'm so glad you shared that. I don't know if we want to call it episode.
Well, pretty much it was.
Because, healing is never linear, whether it's whatever you're healing from. Like there are going to be moments where you slip up, and you need to expect that. And you need to
Yeah.
have, like, if you can have a plan beforehand, even to get back. But even just little things that you mentioned, like instead of getting 4 crumble cookies, you got 2.
Exactly.
Step in the right direction. So we don't have to say we're never, ever going to have a crumble cookie again.
Yeah.
If we can, have it in a more of a controlled environment. And I think too, you were feeling so good. And then all of a sudden you go back to feeling like crap. You're like, no, like,
Yes, exactly.
have those feelings of, feeling well and having that stable energy and being able to eat food and feel nourished and feel good. And I think too, like I would eat till fullness in the past, but I
Mhm.
never felt like actually nourished, where I wasn't bloated, where I wasn't,
Right.
like there's a difference. There's a difference between being full and feeling nourished and going hours without thinking about food. And that is like my goal for people, especially women, when we've been taught, don't eat a lot of meat, don't eat,
Yeah,
like you
that's
need
so true.
salads, you need to peck at your food all day. It's like, well, you're just like perpetually hungry all the
You're
time.
always hungry. Yeah, a salad is great,
Right.
but
Exactly.
I would not put meat on it most of the
Right.
time. I would just, oh no, I'm going to be plant-based. I'm going to do
Yeah.
strictly vegetables. And you really are always hungry. And that did not help with the lupus, the fatigue. And then especially when um, keeping my grandson, I would be literally dying. I was so tired by 1 or 2 o'clock, and sometimes they don't get home till 6:30, sometimes even 7 o'clock. I literally I could barely pick him up. And then if my hands were swollen or my feet were swollen, it was brutally hard. It sounds like, oh, 2 days a week, you can't do that, but it was really hard because I was not eating any protein. And if I was, it was so unhealthy, fried this, which I never ate fried food. But just being able to have bacon in the morning or to have a hamburger and, to do it right. I don't have the bun, I don't have the carbs. It made a huge difference. And especially eating, like I know, if I'm not going to stay for dinner with them, a lot of times I'll have to have something for breakfast or have a light lunch later with him, because I am exerting a lot of energy taking care of him, and now he's walking, so it's twice as much because I'm
Sure.
chasing him around the house. So you really do have to be mindful, but it becomes second nature. It really does become just part of your routine. And to me, I feel like it's almost like a safety net these last 2 weeks where I just totally fell off the wagon and started doing so poorly. Normally I would be terrified, like, oh, how am I going to do this? How I've gained this 4 pounds. How am I going to lose? Because I couldn't even lose 2 running and eating like I was. And now I'm like, okay, I'm not going to panic like I normally would because this worked so well for me. If
Yeah.
I do it right and, get
Yeah.
a little bit of discipline back, I can lose it, which I'm on the way to it now. And now don't worry about it at all.
Yeah, it gives you so much power, just knowing how your
Mhm.
body works and how to nourish it properly and not having to go to packaged foods and, counting calories and all.
Yeah, that's
Your body
miserable.
just wants to be nourished and your hormones need to be in balance and healthy. And,
Right.
if you can do those things, you feel well. So the last step was called Ease Your Mind with sleep and stress. And we've talked a lot about that already, but I know you said like at first you just wanted to sleep all the time and getting the sugar out, you feel like you're sleeping more soundly. But what are you doing, to kind of handle the stress now? And then talk about anything with your sleep or changes there that you'd want the listeners to know about.
Sure. This has been a huge one for me. I lost my dad to ALS back in '05, and he was my best friend. I mean, I quit my job to take care of him. This was right before I met Kurt. But when I lost him, I definitely needed an antidepressant just to get by. So I started an antidepressant then. Well, then when I lost Kurt, I started taking 2 more. One was not enough. So I was on 3 antidepressants. And one of them had side effects of, it sounds crazy, but it's really true. Bad dreams, nightmares.
Yeah, that's pretty common. Mhm.
Yeah, and it was so bad. And it unfortunately, a lot of them, Kurt was in it, and it was bad dreams that were the opposite of how things were. I would just wake up, literally, my face would be soaking wet from crying. So I thought, I've got to get off. I want to get off all of them, but I've got to get off this one in particular. Um, and it sounds crazy, but the more I stopped or started, what do you say, weaning myself off of that one. And it took quite a while, but during my probably the third, fourth, fifth week of starting the fast to heal, I was able to stop one of them completely and had started stopping this one, the major one that was really bothering me. Then my mom went in the hospital and she had congestive heart failure, and I had so much stress. It was almost unbearable, but I was like, no, I'm doing so good with this fasting. I'm sitting there in the ER and I'm thinking, wow, I feel good physically. I'm handling this. I'm coming off of this drug. I'm already off one, got 2 more to come off of. Um, I was feeling okay. And it was really crazy the difference it made for me. With your program, I was finally, even through mom going to the hospital and my grandson had to have a major surgery and all that, I was still, which he turned out great, everything's fine. I was able to get off of all 3. So I am on no
Yay!
no antidepressants
I
at
love
all.
that. And you've been on them for like 15 years.
Yeah, one of them a long time, and the other one, it's been almost 4 years. And
Wow.
that one was really, it's known for being very, very hard to get off of. But my sleep was so bad because of that. And I just wasn't sleeping well anyway. With all that I've been through, my mind would be like a computer and I couldn't turn it off. So unbelievable that. and I did have it. You get these brain zaps and these weird electrical shock feelings coming off of it. But it was so, because I tried before to get off of it and I couldn't handle it. But on this program, for some reason, I mean, I was feeling so much better. And maybe it was because I was eating so good. I wasn't even napping anymore. I was taking 3-hour naps almost every day. And it was awful. And when I would wake up, I would feel so sick.
Yeah.
But especially after I hit my 20-pound goal, completely off of all three, that was huge for me, just huge. And I am sleeping better than I ever have. The minute I say my prayers, and I am out asleep all night. It's just, and the stress, when I do run into things like my mom with her health issues, it kind of comes and goes. She's 88. But I've noticed I can handle things a whole lot better than I could because my mind is clear. You have this clarity that you really get from your body. I look back now and I don't even want to know. I was afraid to go to the doctor and have a physical, recently, because I thought, oh, I've been eating so poorly. I was afraid to go to the dentist. I'd had so much sugar. But it blew me away, the difference and how much better I feel all over, just every part of me, mentally, physically, emotionally. It really has changed my life.
Wow, that is so profound. I mean, I thought you were going to tell me you got off the 2. And then when you said you got off all
Yep.
3, that
All
is
3.
amazing.
Yep.
And, we've talked about the protein and I don't want to get down on anybody who wants to follow a plant-based diet, but you just don't have the building blocks when you don't have enough protein or fat. You don't have the building blocks to build those neurotransmitters that make you
Right.
the neurotransmitters, the serotonin's produced in the gut, 70 to 80%. And if you're not feeding whatever, you're not eating the proper building blocks to build that serotonin, you're going to feel like crap all the time. You're going to be sad,
Yeah.
you're anxious,
Right.
cleaned up your gut microbes, you're boosting your hormones naturally. So many things. And then the energy stabilizes. And, yeah, that is an amazing story. And I think too, like a lot of times people just, again, chalk it up to, oh, I'm premenopausal or I'm menopausal. And certainly,
Which I am.
yes, and I don't want to discount that, because certainly that progesterone and the estrogen, like that can definitely play a role with sleep as well. But there's other things that come into play. So for you to be, now at 52, be sleeping better.
I mean, and one of these drugs, it does help you sleep. It's ironic because it really does help you sleep really well. But then you got to say you're going to have nightmares. It was almost every single night.
Wow.
And especially when I had a really hard day, I could expect there was going to be a nightmare. And you would wake up and go back to sleep and have continue the same one. It was really, really bad. But now that I'm off of all of them, and I am walking a lot more, I haven't gotten into, I'm not going to go to the gym. I know I won't do it. I'm just not in that phase of my life, but I do love hiking, and there's lots of trails where I live. So, and I take my grandson all the time. So I'm definitely exercising again. And I feel like that's going to be the next step, is really upping my game as far as the exercise goes. But for sure, just eating properly has just changed everything about the way I feel. And I know being off of those medications is also a good thing, because I know they have a lot of side effects. And
Yeah. And it's like they're helping you sleep, but what's the quality of your sleep? And
exactly.
if you're
It
getting,
was so bad.
yeah, do you feel refreshed? Are you getting deep sleep? It sounds like the REM sleep was really crazy. And
Oh yeah.
REM sleep. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's so foundational. And if you don't get it, it's going to be hard to go about your day. It's going to be
Oh,
hard.
it's almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it gives you resilience. And yeah, I mean, and stress and sleep, they go hand in hand. When you're very stressed out, it's hard to sleep well.
No, for sure. And I can't say, I haven't had nights where, when my grandson had his surgery, I was very worried and didn't sleep. And really nothing is going to help you when you're going through a situation that's so serious. But I feel like you can get back to it,
Yeah.
and I found a new church. And that's been wonderful for me. I have a lot of support. I have a lot of wonderful friends that were there for me. I volunteered at an animal rescue for years, and they've just all been amazing. I just would not have made it. And a lot of them actually are buying your book and starting your
Wonderful.
program right now. So they've been really supportive. They've not been like, oh, that's not healthy to fast. They know, they've researched, and a lot of them have done intermittent fasting and lost weight. So I have had a lot of support, even though there's people that don't know, and that's not healthy. There's always going to be a few people that really don't know what they're saying, but I haven't let that in any way affect, what I've done. It's worked for me. And
Well,
I know,
mhm.
I have no swelling, and I know my mouth sores are completely gone, and I know I'm sleeping great. And so everything doesn't work for everybody, but this has definitely worked for me.
Yeah. And even if it's not weight loss, even if, you just adapt the strategies and become more metabolically flexible,
Right.
feel better overall with better energy, at least there's some positives to it. And you're going to
Absolutely.
likely extend your lifespan.
Right, right. That's always a good
So that's
thing.
positive. Well, anything else as we close out? Anything else you wanted to share with the listeners, or any other tips that you've shared so much, and I know people are going to love this episode, but anything
Oh, thank
else that
you.
you wanted to share?
Um, I will say, and I always tell people, I've got a couple of friends that are starting this right now, and they're have had a lot of things in their lives happen during trying to do this. But the number one thing for me was zero snacking during the day. That was, I feel like that played a big part in this, because I snacked a lot. And
Yeah.
even when it was healthy, like we were saying, if I felt hungry, I ate, you know. And also, I think it's important to, I don't think I had reached this point in the book, or my friend had not, she had told me about the element.
Yep.
But when you have an autoimmune disease, I think it's more important even to know, after I'd lost the weight, when you have Sjogren's, it dries up all of
Yeah.
your eyes become really dry, your mouth is dry. And I mean, when I say dry, I mean, I couldn't talk, my lips would go in, and I literally couldn't talk. The longer the day went on, the worse it got. So I had to buy all these products, but I was not salting my food. I was not drinking. I was not getting enough sodium. And she
Okay.
had told me in the beginning, make sure that you have the electrolytes. I wasn't doing any of that. I was so excited how good I felt that I didn't pay attention to that. So I will say, especially if you have an autoimmune disease of any kind, make sure you take the electrolytes. Do you use Element, or do you
I
use
use
something?
Element sometimes, like in the afternoon because I like the ones with stevia in it. So I don't want to,
Right.
I don't like to use that in the morning, but I use that, and they're called keto drops or trace elements. I use that in my tea in the morning.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. And then I really like the Redmond Real Light, and they have,
Yes, I bought that.
yeah,
Love it.
really helps. And not only the sodium, but the magnesium, like when you're stressed out, your body just burns through magnesium.
Right, right,
So it's good to have both. And yeah, when you adapt a whole food lifestyle where you're not eating much processed food, you're not getting a lot of sodium, and people
right.
can't have sodium. But I'm like, I salt my food. Like,
I do now with
yeah,
the Redmonds. I love that. To me, it has even a better flavor than normal
I
salt.
agree.
It is
A
so
salt snob
good.
now. And I'm like, oh, and when I cook or bake with it, I feel like I don't need as much because the
Mm-mm.
flavor is so much better.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. I would definitely recommend that. But that's probably the main things. And I will say, I did too many 24-hour fast.
Yeah.
I was so excited, and that made all of this worse because I was doing the fast, but yet didn't have enough sodium, because I've never cooked with salt. Even when I cooked for, for me and Kurt, I just thought, oh, salt is bad, and I never salted. So I was probably not getting any sodium.
Yeah.
So I'm careful to do that now. And plus I'm eating a little more now. I've learned, you don't need to do 3 24-hour fasts in
Yeah.
7-day period. That's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
But it's just really focusing on the no sugar, the no snacking, that if you have to put your hand in a box or a package, I always thought, oh, the Belvita and the Nutri-Grain, those are so healthy. And I ate those all the time. But I
Yeah.
always noticed I had a gross feeling because it had sugar in it. I
Yeah.
just always felt gross afterwards, just kind of lethargic, and my stomach just felt,
And
So
the
that,
chemicals that are in there too can cause
yes,
you for sure.
exactly. And I did buy glass Tupperware, which I
Okay.
thought, that could make a difference, but I'm doing that too. I just feel like if you're going to do it, really, if you're going to do this, it's hard to do it if you don't have support. Like, I can imagine if Kurt was here and he was not supporting me, that would be hard. So you kind of have to have a talk with people to get them on board, in your family if they're not, because seeing your family eat and you're not eating dinner, if it's a night you're not having dinner, I feel like you kind of need to just explain that going in. This is what I'm doing, this is why, and just be mentally prepared. I was prepared that I might be hungry some in the beginning, and
Yeah.
still now, occasionally, not as much as I thought, but
Yeah. And
just,
you just work through that and say, it's okay to be hungry for a little while.
right, you'll
Hey,
survive.
I'm not gonna die. It's okay.
Yeah, you'll survive. Don't go buy crumble and get 2 cookies, because that's going to mess up everything.
Yep. And then
So,
and I love how you've recognized if you do go off the rails, going back to you kind of falling off the wagon for a couple of days, like you recognize like my insulin is high right now.
it
And
was.
if I try to jump into exactly what I was doing before or doing a 24-hour fast, I am going to set myself up for failure. I've got to bring that insulin level down for a day or two first, get myself feeling better, and then think about extending. And I think, when people don't know how their bodies work and insulin works, and, they just start to implement fasting, that can be a very positive thing, but to have the nutrition knowledge behind you is super important.
Yeah, it is, because I would, like when I was sick, when I had COVID, I mean, I literally couldn't eat. We couldn't taste it anyway.
I know,
So
it's so
yeah,
strange.
it was awful.
Also way.
Yeah, but that's an unhealthy way. If you do this and you make sure you eat enough protein, to me it was great, because I've never made big
Yeah,
breakfasts like this, and I'm like, look at all that I get to eat, and
right?
and that literally will last me all day, even
Yes.
with no snacks. And I would say also, if you're just starting out and you're really, really struggling to get through, the 24 hours, just a handful of nuts or
Yeah.
something like that makes you feel like, okay, I've eaten something, and mentally, maybe that will help you get through, the
Yeah, you
rest
don't
of the
have to be
day.
perfect right away. I mean, I'm like,
Yeah.
how many, 3 years into this lifestyle, and now I feel like I've got a really good handle on it, but it's like
Yeah.
everything's going to change from day to day. The stress, the sleep, all of those things play a role. But I do have to know, so adding the sodium, has that helped the dryness in your mouth?
100%. It
Oh,
is
that's
completely gone.
wonderful.
And also it was because I don't think I was eating enough when I was doing too
Ah,
many 24-hour fasts. I was not eating enough. So there was extra sodium I wasn't getting. And just the amount of water. I've always been a water drinker, but with adding the element to that and then
yeah.
drinking all of it, just any electrolyte, I
Yeah.
feel like, and I do take magnesium. I take a supplement that has magnesium in it, so that definitely helped. But yeah, it was really bad. And I think the main thing was I was doing too many 24-hour
Yeah.
fasts, and that
Yeah.
was not, the weight loss was too rapid. That it definitely made the dryness so much worse, but it's completely gone now, thank goodness.
I
So
love that. I mean, seriously, it's like not even 3 months and you have just like turned your health around, and it's
It's
really
been it's honestly a miracle to me. If you had seen me, and I mean, I'm a completely different person. I mean, the
and
emotionally,
you are
yeah,
metabolically, you're different. Yeah.
I'm sure. And I can tell when you're sleeping that much, when I take a nap, it's 3 hours, I can't do 30-minute nap. And that was almost every single day. And for me, I have not had maybe one nap when I just wasn't feeling good one day.
Mhm.
Um, it just really, it sounds like I'm exaggerating all this, but I'm really not. It really has just been wonderful for me. And also I'd lost all my confidence when Kurt died. I wouldn't go anywhere. I wouldn't try anything new. I thought, I'm not going to hike. I'm not going to kayak. I'm not going to do anything we used to do. And I feel like now, well, I did this. Maybe I can hike
Mhm.
again, I mean, maybe I can do all these things that I thought I couldn't do. It's just really been life changing for me. And it is a safety net. If I do mess up, which I know I probably will, when you lose your spouse, and, we had what I thought was pretty much a perfect marriage. He was my best friend, and I couldn't have been happier. And, to go through something like that, and your mindset is just cut off. Everything you thought your future was. So you lose your confidence and you lose your will really to live. And this has kind of brought a new attitude for me to see, hey, I did this. So now I feel like it's a safety net. If I screw up again, I got here the first time, I know I can get back. So I'm not worried about this 4 pounds that I gained. And it's not even just that, stopping going to crumble. It sounds so silly, but I drive by it all the time and I'm so tempted, but I'm like, nope. And it becomes easier and easier just to stop the sugar. So everything to me gets easier if you just, I'll say, give it time.
Yep.
Don't give up.
Yep.
If it takes you longer, this was a miracle that this happened so fast for me. It really is. But to those it doesn't come so quickly, I would just say you will see results. Just don't give up.
Yep.
Keep trying.
Yep. And you might need to tweak some things, and everybody's story is a little different, but we so appreciate you sharing your story.
Oh, well, thank
Very,
you for
very inspirational. And
thank you.
it's not easy to do. It's not easy to come on and tell everybody, what you've been through and what you're doing now and how you've seen your progress, and sharing as much as you did. So we are very thankful for you, and
Well, thank you.
and so happy that you crawled out of that dark place that you were in, and now have hope, and that, like you said, like there's going to be blips, but you can handle it now, and
For sure.
and
Yep.
know. And
I have a grandson and I want to be here to watch him grow up, and I want to take him on trips and do physical activities, and I want to feel good. I don't want to have to lay down and take a nap. So this has really helped me in so many ways. So I'm grateful for you and your book, and all your other listeners that have helped me, even just one little thing that they say,
oh yeah, because I did want to tell people, like, you joined the fast track program, and
yeah,
that's kind of your accountability, and we can meet there.
absolutely.
So that's been
I
helpful.
have my mini sessions, and if I have questions, and I have a book that I keep now, and anytime I have a question, I'll write it down,
Yes.
and I feel it is just another safety net where if I'm like, oh, I wonder if I'm doing this right, because I was doing a lot of things wrong, and after our first session, I was like, okay, I can eat more. And I'm
Yeah.
still, I don't have to continue doing so many 24-hour fasts. I can eat more, and
Yep.
it's been great. That definitely cleared up all the issues I was having. So
Awesome.
I'm
Well,
back
it's
on
so great
track.
to
So,
hear. I mean, like I said, there's people are going to be loving this episode, and I'm
well,
so
thank you so
grateful that
much.
you're willing to share your story. And
I'm just glad I didn't cry through most of it. I was afraid I
well,
might.
I would have been surprised if you didn't. I mean, you've been through quite the ordeal. So we are thankful for you sharing everything, and we wish you well. And I'm sure you're going to be here a long time now to,
Yes, I
continue on
hope
with this
so.
journey and in a healthy way. So thank
This
you
has
for
helped
joining us.
me tremendously. So thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Bye, Elizabeth.
Bye, Shana.